She said, "We're having a baby. Will you take responsibility?" I replied, "I have a new girlfriend." The night my past came crashing into my future, I was standing in my tiny kitchen in Tacoma, staring at my phone. One message was from Emily, the woman I used to live with and almost built a life with. The other was from Hannah, the woman who was slowly making me believe I could start over. I did not know it yet, but by the time that week was over, one of them would be pregnant with my child, and I would be the guy trying to say, "I have a new girlfriend," like that could erase what I had done. My name is Noah Carter. I am 26, and I work as a maintenance tech for a mid-sized apartment complex on the edge of Tacoma, Washington. My days are simple. Fix a leaky faucet in the morning, unclog a kitchen sink after lunch, reset a breaker for someone who swears they did not touch anything. I walk around with a metal toolbox bumping against my leg, boots squeaking on wet concrete, the smell of rain-soaked pine always somewhere in the air. I live in one of the older, one-bedroom units on the property. The carpet is worn. The couch is sagging in the middle. My kitchen has yellowed cabinets and a microwave that sounds like it might explode every time I hit start. My window faces the parking lot, and on windy days I can hear the evergreen scraping against the light poles. It is not much, but it is mine. For a while, that was enough. Then there is Emily Brooks. She is 29, 3 years older than me, and for almost a year she was my whole world. We met at a farmer's market in downtown Tacoma 2 years ago. She was arguing with a vendor about which berries made the best pie. I was just wandering around after a shift, trying to kill time so I did not have to go home to my empty place. She turned to me, pointed at a carton of raspberries, and asked, "What do you think?" I made some dumb joke about not trusting a guy raised on frozen pizza for food advice, and she laughed. From there it moved fast. Coffee that weekend. A hike at Point Defiance the next. Drives up toward Mount Rainier on clear days, when the mountain looked close enough to touch. We binged the same old sci-fi shows, shared the same hatred for rush hour traffic, and spent Sunday mornings cooking pancakes in a tiny kitchen that always smelled like coffee and butter. For a while, it felt like we were building something real. We moved into a small apartment together that looked out on a little park. Kids played on the swings in the afternoons. Dog walkers passed by with tangled leashes. Inside, Emily kept plants on the windowsill and mugs lined up by color. She worked as an assistant at a law firm downtown, always in neat blouses and sharp flats, hair in a low bun. I would watch her rush around getting ready in the mornings and think, "This is it. This is what grown-up looks like." Then the cracks started to show. Emily was ready for the next step. She wanted a house with a yard, maybe a rescue dog, and a wedding board on her phone filled with photos of white dresses and barn reception ideas. She would bring up savings plans and down payments. She would ask what I thought about kids, not right away, but someday. She had timelines and quiet expectations. I had panic. I felt trapped just hearing the words. Mortgage. Responsibilities. Forever. I was only 25. Still feeling like I was just figuring out how to pay my bills on time, I made jokes to dodge the talks. I said things like, "One day, when I win the lottery, sure." She would smile at first, but over time those smiles faded. The talks turned into arguments. The arguments turned into long silences on the couch with the TV talking for us. One night we sat side by side, not touching, while some old movie played in the background. Emily stared at the screen and said, very quietly, "We want different things." I did not deny it. We both loved each other, but love was not fixing the gap between her plan and my fear. We decided to end it before we started to hate each other. No screaming, no cheating, just boxes, divided furniture, and her keeping the park view while I went back to my maintenance apartment. We told ourselves we would be friends. For a while, it kinda worked. She would text if something broke in her place, and I would swing by with my tools. When my truck battery died during a storm, she was the one who showed up with jumper cables and a thermos of hot coffee. We sent each other photos of funny cats or weird clouds. Nothing heavy, just two people who had shared a life, pretending we could share a light version of it without getting burned. Then Hannah walked in. Literally. Into Brewhaven, the coffee shop around the corner from the complex. She worked there. Curly brown hair pulled into a ponytail, apron dusted with coffee grounds, smile easy and bright, like she did not know the word heavy. One morning she slid my black coffee across the counter and said, "You are the guy who fixed our sink last month, right?" I said, "Yeah." She tucked a stray curl behind her ear and thanked me again like I had done something amazing instead of basic plumbing. Hannah was simple in the best way. She liked hiking on weekends. She loved mystery novels. She did not ask about marriage timelines or mortgage plans. We started talking more. She would slip me an extra cookie with my coffee. After her shift, we would grab burgers and sit by the water, watching the gray waves slap against the rocks. With her, my chest felt lighter. Like maybe life did not have to be so serious all the time. For the first time since the breakup, I thought about moving on for real. About being someone's boyfriend again, not just the guy they used to live with. I started picturing myself holding Hannah's hand at the mall, or bringing her to a barbecue, introducing her as my girlfriend. It felt possible, clean, new. Then, like she always did, Emily slipped back into the space between my thoughts. One rainy evening, as I lay on my couch scrolling job listings on my phone, her name lit up the screen. Peanut just knocked over that ugly lamp you hated. Thought you would appreciate the crime scene. She attached a blurry photo of a tipped-over lamp and a smug orange cat. I laughed, typed back, told him I always knew he was on my side, and hit send before I could stop myself. I lay there after, phone warm in my hand, thinking about how I was standing in two worlds at once. One with a woman who wanted a future I was not ready for, and one with a woman who might give me a second chance at something simple. I had no idea yet how fast those two worlds were about to collide, or how one stormy night would turn a quiet, friendly text from Emily into the most terrifying sentence I had ever heard. "We are having a baby. Will you take responsibility?" The night everything changed started like any other bad weather evening in Tacoma. The sky was dark by late afternoon, and the rain was coming down in heavy sheets, rattling against my windows. I had just kicked off my boots, dropped my toolbox by the door, and poured instant ramen into a bowl for dinner. The TV was on low, some crime show I was not really watching, when my phone buzzed. First it was Hannah. "Hey, want to catch that new thriller at the mall theater tonight 8 p.m.? I stared at the message, feeling that little lift in my chest. A movie with her sounded easy and fun. No expectations, no history. I started to type a yes. Before I could hit send, another text came in, this time from Emily. "Power is out. I think the breaker's tripped. It is dark, and I am freaking out. Can you please come?" I stared at her message. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky, followed by a bright crack of lightning. I knew she hated storms. When we lived together, she would turn on every lamp in the apartment during a bad one and pretend she was fine, but I could feel her hand shaking when she held my arm. I could have told her to call an electrician. I could have said I was busy. I could have chosen Hannah and the movie and the new start I kept promising myself. Instead, I sighed, typed a quick reply to Hannah, and hit send. "Storm is bad. Roads look rough. Can we take a rain check on tonight?" She replied with a quick no problem and a smiley face. That made it worse somehow. She was being kind and I was already letting her down. Then I texted Emily. On my way. The drive across town was a blur of wipers on full speed and water splashing up from the tires. Streetlights glowed in halos through the rain. By the time I pulled up in front of Emily's building, my jaw was clenched and my stomach was tight. She opened the door almost as soon as I knocked. Her face was pale in the light of her phone flashlight. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, and she was wearing an old gray hoodie that used to be mine. Seeing it on her hit me harder than I expected. "Thank God," she said, her voice a mix of relief and nerves. "Come in. I did not want to start flipping switches and set the whole place on fire." I stepped inside. The apartment was dim. A few scented candles flickered on the coffee table, throwing soft light on the walls. It smelled like vanilla and rain. I tried not to think about all the nights I had come home to this same smell. "The breaker box is in the utility closet, right?" I asked. She nodded, folding her arms over her chest like she was cold, even though the room was warm. I grabbed my headlamp from the toolbox and went to work. The main switch had tripped from the surge. A couple of smaller ones were flipped, too. It was a simple fix. I reset them one by one and the lights flickered back on with a low hum. "There," I said, turning off my headlamp. "Should be fine now. If it trips again, call the landlord, not just me." Emily let out a long breath and sagged against the wall for a second, then straightened. "You are a lifesaver," she said with a small smile. "Can you stay for a bit?" I made tea before it went out. It feels weird being here alone with the storm. Everything in me wanted to say no, to get out, to go home, to text Hannah again and fix what I had already cracked. But Emily's eyes were tired and a little red, like she had been fighting tears before I got there. "Sure," I said. "1 cup." We sat on the couch with steaming mugs between our hands. The rain drummed against the windows, steady and constant. For a while we kept it light. Work. Annoying clients at her firm. Some weird repair call I had that morning. Then she took a slow breath and shifted, turning to face me. "Are you happy, Noah?" she asked. "Like really happy?" The question knocked me back. I stared at the tea for a second, watching the steam rise. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Some days I feel okay. Other days it is just work and sleep. Repeat. What about you?" She gave a small, sad smile. "I thought I would be," she said. "I thought letting you go would mean I could find someone on the same page. Someone ready to settle down right away. But it just feels empty. I miss having someone who knows how I like my coffee, or how I hate folding fitted sheets. I miss you." The words hung between us, heavy, warm, dangerous. Outside, thunder rolled again. The lights flickered once and steadied. I was aware of how close we were sitting, her knee almost touching mine, the smell of rain in her hair, the old hoodie I once wore, hanging loose around her shoulders. "You could have called someone else about the power," I said quietly. "I know," she replied, looking straight at me. "But I wanted to call you." That was the moment I should have stood up. I should have set my mug down, said I was glad she was safe, and walked out. Instead, I reached up and brushed a damp strand of hair away from her face. It was a small, simple touch, but her eyes closed for a second, like she had been waiting for it. When she opened them again, there was a softness there I knew too well. "Noah," she whispered. She leaned toward me, and I did not move away. Her lips brushed mine, light at first, testing. I could have pulled back. I did not. My hand slid to the back of her neck. The kiss deepened. All the old feelings, the history, the comfort rushed in like the rain pounding outside. We moved together without talking. The tea went cold on the table. Time stretched. It was not like before. There was a sadness in it, a sense that we were reaching for something we had already lost and did not know how to stop. Afterward, we lay on the couch, the room dim, the storm finally starting to ease. Emily's head rested on my chest. My arm lay around her shoulders on reflex. I stared at the ceiling and felt a knot of guilt form in my stomach. "We should not have done that," she said softly, but she did not move away. "I know," I said. "It was a bad idea." But neither of us stood up. We drifted off like that, half tangled, half apart, clinging to something that felt familiar even if it was wrong. When I woke up, gray morning light was leaking in around the curtains. My neck ached. Emily was still asleep, turned on her side, blanket pulled up around her shoulders. I eased away, grabbed my jacket and tools, and slipped out as quietly as I could. The air outside was cold and wet. I stood beside my truck, heart pounding, and told myself the same lie over and over. It was just one night. One mistake. It does not have to mean anything. For a few weeks I tried to believe it. I avoided Emily. I texted Hannah more. I went back to fixing leaks and replacing light bulbs like nothing had changed. Then one evening, about 2 months later, my phone buzzed while I was tightening a cabinet door in one of the units. I wiped my hands on my jeans and checked the screen. It was Emily. "Noah, I need to talk, please." My chest tightened. I almost ignored it. Almost. A few hours later, I was standing in her living room again. The lights were on this time. No storm. No candles. Just Emily on the couch, hands shaking slightly as she held a small white stick. She looked up at me. Her eyes were full, but her voice was steady as she spoke. "We are having a baby," she said. "Will you take responsibility?" The room tilted. My mouth went dry. The first words that tumbled out of my mouth were the worst ones I could have chosen. "I have a new girlfriend." The second the words left my mouth, I wanted to grab them out of the air and shove them back in. "I have a new girlfriend." Emily went very still. Her fingers tightened around the pregnancy test until her knuckles turned white. For a moment, her face did not show anything at all. Then the color drained out of her cheeks. "Wow," she said quietly. "Okay." She set the test gently on the coffee table like it was made of glass and sat back against the couch. Her eyes did not meet mine. She just stared at the wall, jaw clenched. I took a step forward, my heart pounding. "Emily, I did not mean it like that." I panicked. It just came out wrong. Quote. She gave a short, humorless laugh. "How else did you mean it, Noah? You made your point pretty clear. You have moved on, you have a new girlfriend. Good for you." Her voice was calm, but I could hear the crack underneath it. I felt my throat tighten. "I was trying to say that my life is not simple right now." I tried again. "That I am not just free and alone. But that does not change the fact that this is my kid. I am not saying I am walking away." She finally looked at me then, eyes shining with anger and hurt. "You know what you sounded like," she said. "Like one of those guys in those sad stories. The ones who say they are not ready, who act like a baby is a problem, not a person. I called you because I thought, if anyone will stand up and be honest with me, it would be you." Guilt washed over me in a hot wave. She was right. I sounded like a coward. "I am sorry," I said, and I meant it. "I am scared. That is all. But I am not going to pretend this is not real. I will step up. I will help. I need to talk to Hannah. She deserves to know." Quote. Emily nodded slowly, like she was forcing herself to stay controlled. "I am not asking you to propose," she said. "I am not even asking you to get back together. I just want to know you are going to be here, not disappear when it gets hard." I sank down into the chair across from her, elbows on my knees. "I will not disappear," I said. "I promise. I just messed up my first words." There was a long silence. The clock on her wall ticked loud in the quiet living room. Cars passed outside on the wet street. "Can I see the doctor papers?" I asked softly. She handed me a folded sheet from the clinic. I opened it with shaking hands. The words blurred, but I saw the dates. 8 weeks. Estimated due date. Everything lined up with that night. It was real. On the back was the ultrasound picture. A small shape, fuzzy and strange, with a tiny bright flicker in the middle. The heartbeat. I stared at it until my eyes stung. "That is ours," I whispered. Emily's voice softened a little. "Yes, ours." I sat back, the paper trembling in my hand, fear and something else mixed in my chest. Awe. This little life, growing because of one night we both tried to file under mistake. "You should go," she said finally, her voice quiet again. "Talk to your girlfriend. Sort your life out. I will keep you updated on appointments. Just do not leave me guessing." I wanted to say more, to tell her how sorry I was for hurting her twice now. To say I still cared about her, even if I did not know what that meant anymore. But nothing seemed right. Every word felt like it might make things worse. So I nodded, set the ultrasound paper carefully on the table, and walked to the door. My hand was on the knob when she spoke again. "Noah." I looked back. She was sitting with her hands folded in her lap, trying to look strong, but her eyes gave her away. "If your new girlfriend hears the words, 'We are having a baby,' and she runs, then she is not the right one, for you or for this kid." Her words landed hard and clean. I swallowed and gave a small nod. "She deserves the truth," I said. "Both of you do." Outside, the air was cold and damp. I sat in my truck for a full 5 minutes before I could turn the key. My hands shook so badly I dropped my phone between the seats and had to fish it out. I drove home on autopilot. The streets slid past in a blur of wet pavement and red taillights. When I got back to my apartment, the silence hit me like a wall. My couch, my sink, my old microwave, all of it suddenly felt too small for the size of the decision in front of me. I did not sleep that night. I lay on my back, staring at the cracked paint on the ceiling, listening to rain tick against the window. My mind swung between Emily on the couch holding that test and Hannah's smile across a table at Brewhaven. Around 3 in the morning, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Hannah. "You okay? You were quiet today." I stared at the screen, my chest tight. I could lie. I could send a joke and buy myself a few more days of pretending everything was normal. But Emily's voice echoed in my head. If she runs, she is not the right one. My fingers shook as I typed. "Can we talk tomorrow after your shift?" Something important came up. She replied a minute later. "Sure, my place at 7. The next day crawled. I went through the motions at work, changing filters, fixing a broken garbage disposal, replacing a cracked outlet cover, but I was somewhere else. I kept seeing that little white stick on Emily's table, kept hearing Hannah's laugh. My stomach stayed in a tight knot until my shift finally ended. At 6:50, I stood outside Hannah's apartment door with my heart pounding against my ribs. It felt like my life was split in two. The version where I told the truth and braced for impact, and the version where I lied and tried to juggle everything until it broke on its own. I knocked. She opened the door with a smile that faded when she saw my face. "You look like you have seen a ghost," she said, stepping aside to let me in. "What is going on?" I stepped inside, my boots heavy on her hardwood floor. Her place smelled like fresh coffee and cinnamon. String lights glowed soft above her couch. It felt warm and safe, and everything I was afraid of losing. We sat down at her small table without touching. She folded her hands, waiting. I could feel her eyes on me. "Hannah," I started, my voice rough, "I am going to tell you something. It is going to sound bad. It is bad, but I am not going to lie to you." She did not say anything. She just gave a small nod like, "Go on. It is about my ex, Emily." Her shoulders tensed. I forced myself to meet her eyes. The night of that big storm when I said I was staying in, I went to her place. Her power was out. I fixed it. We talked. Things got emotional. And I made a mistake with her. Just once. But now she is pregnant. 8 weeks. The words fell between us like bricks. Hannah blinked once, twice. For a moment, she just stared at me like she did not understand the language I was speaking. Then, it sank in. Her face crumpled. "You slept with her while we were seeing each other?" she asked quietly. "Yes," I said, "before we were official, but after we started seeing each other." "I am not going to excuse it. I am just telling you the truth. The baby is mine." Her eyes filled with tears. She tried to blink away. She let out a shaky breath and looked down at the table. "So when she said, 'We are having a baby,' you said you have a new girlfriend," she said slowly. "Was that supposed to make it better or worse?" I had no answer. My chest ached. "I panicked," I admitted, "but I am taking responsibility. For the baby. I have to." She nodded, lips pressed tight. For a long moment, the only sound was the faint hum of her fridge. Then she looked up, and the question in her eyes scared me more than anything. "Where does that leave me, Noah? What am I to you now?" I opened my mouth, ready to say I cared about her, that I wanted her in my life, that we could somehow make this work. But my mind flashed back to Emily's worn face, her hand on her stomach, the ultrasound picture in my hand. The truth rose up inside me like a weight I could not push down. At that moment, I knew that whatever I said next would change everything. I took a breath that felt like it scraped my ribs from the inside. "Hannah," I said, forcing myself not to look away. "You are important to me. I like you. I like who I am when I am with you. But this baby is real. Emily is scared. I am scared. I cannot pretend this is just something on the side. It is my responsibility, my kid." Her face twisted like I had slapped her, even though my voice was soft. "So what does that mean?" she asked. "Do I stay while you play family with your ex? Or do I get to be the cool side character who smiles and understands?" There was pain and anger in her eyes, and every bit of it was earned. I swallowed hard. "You should not have to be any of that," I said. "You deserve someone who comes to you with a clean slate, someone whose life is not tied to another woman and a baby. If you stay with me right now, you will always be second to whatever is going on over there. That is not fair to you." A tear slid down her cheek. She wiped it away with the back of her hand. "So that is it," she whispered. "You choose her." I shook my head slowly. "I am not choosing her as some big romantic move," I said. "I am choosing my responsibility. I am choosing the baby. And yeah, that means standing by Emily, being there at appointments. Late nights, all of it. Maybe something grows from that. Maybe it does not. I do not know. But I know I cannot be your boyfriend and pretend my life is not about to change in a huge way." She let out a shaky laugh that had no joy in it. "You know what hurts," she said. "It is not that she is pregnant. It is that you made me feel like we were starting something real while you were still half in that old world. I walked into this thinking you were ready." "I thought I was," I said. "I was wrong." She took a deep breath, like she was steadying herself on the inside. "Then I am not going to fight her," she said quietly, "or the baby. I am not that girl. You need to go figure this out. Without me." "Hannah, I am sorry," I said again, the words feeling small compared to the mess I had made. She stood up and walked to the door, hand on the knob. She did not open it yet. Instead, she looked back at me one last time. "For what it is worth," she said, "I hope you actually step up. For that kid. And I hope you stop running from your own life." Quote. Then she opened the door. I walked out into the hall, the smell of coffee fading behind me as the door shut with a soft click that felt louder than any slam. On the drive home, I did not turn on the radio. The streets were wet but calm, reflections of streetlights swimming in the puddles. I felt hollow and heavy at the same time. I had just lost something simple and kind. But under the pain, one thing was clear. There was no more halfway. No more trying to live in two stories at once. The next day, I called Emily. "We need a plan," I said. "Not just texts and panic. A real plan. For the baby, for money, for everything." She agreed. We met at a small diner, not far from the complex. The kind with sticky menus and a bell that rang every time someone came in. She wore a loose sweater and jeans. Her hair was down. She looked tired but more grounded than the last time I saw her. We spread out papers on the table. Doctor schedule, costs, my pay stubs. I had brought a legal pad with rough numbers. I had never been that guy before, the one who made budgets and wrote down goals. I was learning on the fly. "I picked up extra shifts," I told her. "I can cut back on eating out. I can sell my old guitar. We can split costs where we can. I will send money each month. I will be there for checkups. Whatever you need." She watched me for a long moment, eyes searching my face like she was trying to see if this was real. "What about your girlfriend?" she asked quietly. I met her eyes. "She is not my girlfriend anymore," I said. I told her the truth. She deserves better than this chaos. "Right now, my life is you, this baby, and work. That is it." Something shifted in her expression. Not joy, not yet, but a kind of respect. "Okay," she said softly. "Then we do this, together, as parents, one step at a time." We shook hands across the table. It was such a simple gesture, but my chest tightened. This was more binding than any promise ring. This was our line in the sand. The months that followed were not some magical movie montage. They were messy and long and full of small, grinding choices. I went to every appointment I could. I sat in plastic chairs under bad fluorescent lights while nurses took Emily's blood pressure. I watched the screen during ultrasounds as our baby grew from a fuzzy blob to something with tiny arms and legs. Every time I heard that rapid heartbeat, something inside me anchored a little deeper. At home, I changed. I started packing lunches instead of grabbing fast food. I skipped nights out with the guys to save the extra cash. I moved out of my work unit and into a cheap 2-bedroom a few blocks from Emily's place, so I could be close when the baby came, but still give us both space. I turned the second bedroom into a nursery before she even saw it. Second-hand crib. A rocking chair I sanded and stained myself. Soft lamp in the corner. When I showed it to her one afternoon, she stood in the doorway with her hand on her growing stomach and tears in her eyes. "You did all this," she whispered. "Yeah," I said, suddenly shy. "Figured it would be good to have a place ready for her. Or him, in case you need a break. Or sleep. Or just quiet." Quote. She walked in slowly, running her fingers along the crib rail. "Her," she said finally with a small smile. "Doctor says it is a girl." A girl. The word wrapped around my heart. We were not a couple again. We argued sometimes. About names, about money, about my long hours or her fear of doing everything wrong. But we always came back to the same place, that little life growing inside her. One night, about a month before the due date, we sat on her couch with takeout containers on the table and baby name lists on our phones. Her feet were up on a pillow. I was rubbing slow circles on her ankle without thinking. "What are you most scared of?" she asked, staring at the ceiling. "Turning into my dad," I said before I could filter it. "Walking away when things get hard, making promises I cannot keep." She turned her head to look at me. "You are not him," she said quietly. "You are here. That matters." "What about you?" I asked. "What are you scared of?" "Doing it alone," she said so softly I almost missed it. "Loving her so much it hurts and not being enough. Or depending on you and watching you leave again." Her voice cracked on the last word. I felt it like a punch. "I am not going anywhere," I said, turning to face her. "I messed up when we were together. I ran from the future you wanted. I will not run from this. From her. From you. Not this time." Her eyes searched mine. For a long second, she did not say anything. Then she nodded, wiped her cheek, and went back to scrolling names. The night our daughter was born, the world outside was quiet and clear. No storms. Just a cold sky and bright stars. Emily's water broke at 3 in the morning. She called me once and I was there in 15 minutes, grabbing the hospital bag we had packed weeks before. In the delivery room, she gripped my hand so hard I thought my fingers might break. Her hair stuck to her forehead. Her face was red with effort. I coached her through breaths like I knew what I was doing, my own heart pounding with fear and awe. When Clara finally came out, crying strong and loud, everything else fell away. The nurse placed her in Emily's arms first. Then Emily looked up at me and nodded. "Come here, Dad," she said, voice hoarse. She passed Clara to me. I held her against my chest. She was so small, so warm, with this tiny crease in her brow like she was already confused by the world she had landed in. I laughed and cried at the same time, tears spilling down my cheeks. "Hey," I whispered. "I am Noah. I am your dad. I am not going anywhere." Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Emily watching, tears streaming freely now. There was something in her gaze I had not seen in a long time. Not the old romantic love that burned hot and wild. Something steadier, deeper, trust. Weeks later, when the chaos of the first days settled into a new kind of normal, she stopped by my place with Clara in her arms. The nursery I had set up was finally in use. We laid Clara in the crib and stood side by side watching her tiny chest rise and fall. "I keep thinking about that day," Emily said quietly. "When I told you we were having a baby and you said you had a new girlfriend." I winced. "I was a coward," I said. "I was trying to hide behind some idea of a life that was already half fake. I am sorry." She nodded slowly. "I believed you for a minute," she said. "I thought you were going to walk away. But you did not. You have kept every promise since. You show up, you do the work, you changed." I looked at her, really looked. At the dark circles under her eyes. At the way she still held herself ready for the next hard thing. At the softness that had crept back into her smile when she looked at Clara. And at me. "I changed because I wanted to," I said. "Not just for her. For you. For me. I do not want to be the guy who runs anymore. I want to be the one who stays." who builds something with you, if you want that too." She turned to me, eyes bright. "Are you saying you want us back?" she asked. "Not just as parents. As us." I swallowed, my heart hammering. "I am saying I still love you," I said. "Not the picture in my head. You, the woman who works hard, who laughs at bad jokes, who calls me when the power goes out. I was stupid to let fear ruin that once. I do not want to make that mistake again." There was a long pause. I heard the soft hum of the heater, the faint city noise outside, Clara's little snuffle. Then Emily stepped closer, her hand finding mine. "I am still mad at the old you," she said, a small smile tugging at her lips. "The one who hid behind excuses and other girls." "Fair," I said, my voice shaking a little. "But this you," she continued, squeezing my fingers, "the one who shows up, who built a nursery before anyone asked, who holds her like she is the whole world, that is the man I could fall in love with again." My chest felt too full. I lifted our joined hands, kissing the back of hers. She leaned in, resting her head on my shoulder as we both watched our daughter sleep. I thought back to that awful line I had thrown at her. "I have a new girlfriend." Now, standing there with both of them in my life, it hit me how wrong I had been. I did not need a new girlfriend. I needed to grow into the kind of man who could stand in his own mess, clean it up, and choose the people who needed him most. So I pulled Emily closer and whispered the only promise I knew I could keep. "I am here," I said, "for you, for her, for all of it. No more running." She nodded against my shoulder. "We are a family now," she said. "Messy, complicated, but real." Out in the parking lot, the evergreens swayed in a light breeze, the same view I had stared at alone so many nights before, only now it did not feel empty. It felt like the start of something. Not perfect, not simple, but ours.